Let's just rip, dude.
Let's do it.
Yeah, no, we'll just deal with it. Yeah. So here's, we're buzzing. I've been.
What do you say? What do you and Spencer say? Is it welcome to the world or?
No, hello world.
Hello world.
We do, dude, we got famous for like 48 hours because of our clap. Remember the clap, the first initial clap?
Yes.
Yeah, that was like our thing.
Dude.
You know, the thing that's ironic about that, and I hope to move beyond this initial story, but I've been podcasting for a few years, and we'll just get a little settling in. That's what that smoke will get us. But I've been podcasting for a few years, and this is actually my 4th show. And the reason why I want to get away from telling this original story is the first time I ever did this, I was so nervous. And it's like when you're nervous, it's kind of beautiful to be nervous because when you're nervous, you default to, in my opinion, you default to your most like true sense. Now, if you're nervous and you fail in something like publicly, I would suppose like sports, that probably sucks, but it at least like breaks you down to this like level of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And so for me in like artistic endeavors or scenarios and things that I've tried to pull off in the last decade or so of teaching, it's always kind of turned into a really funny bit, you know? And I think the reason why it's funny, because if you think of comedy, I think comedy is when it's really funny, it's because it's true.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what happens a lot when you're nervous. So I say this because the first time I ever did a podcast, me and the guys who were doing it were nervous and we were drinking on it to press play. But one of the things about buddy,
I heard you drank like a bottle
of whiskey. We just pounded a bottle of whiskey to get it going. But this one guy, Dave Fisher, who is the man, dude, you'd love this guy. We call him the fish feeder and hockey guy. And the first time we pressed play, I know I'm dogging him for a second, but he's the guy, he's the man. And this was a long time ago. But the first time we pressed play, he went into this like character and his voice changed into a sound I'd never heard before. Right. It's wild, dude. And because of that, we started laughing. So we had to like keep replaying and restarting and like trying to find our voice. So I say that because when Spencer Howard and we did hand pans and sound bowls this past summer for the boys. And I didn't know you knew Howie that well.
Oh yeah.
Because you guys are boys.
Yeah.
Is that Philly days?
Phillies. And he went to Cal Poly Slow. I was supposed to go to Cal Poly Slow.
Okay.
And so we just kind of connected the dots when we got drafted by the Phillies. And we lived together one spring.
No way.
Yeah, 2020, actually.
Right. COVID year.
So
wow, because he told me you had went over to his house. I've been training at his house this offseason in the manhole. Shout out to the manhole's garage. And
he's legit.
Yeah, it is. He had like a party one of the days early. I didn't end up going to it. I can't remember. We had something we were going to do, but the next day I was like, how was it? And he told me you were over there.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, I didn't know you guys were boys like that, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But when we did this past summer, I met him in camp.
Yeah.
Similar to the story you told me, which is always funny how you view how you first met somebody. Like how you told me the story how you met me and how we kind of connected, which is epic, right? That's kind of how Howie and I connected. I don't really know what was really taking place, but one time we were breathing together and we got out of there and then he brought these nails. You ever seen the nail boards he stands on?
Yeah.
He brought those nail boards one day. And I looked at him and I said, dude, I got to stand on those. And that was how we met. We went up to the 3rd floor at not Papago, but the Scottsdale Stadium. Do you remember that? And we stood up there as the sun was rising on these nails. That was the first time I met that guy, really. And we just became kind of boys. Yeah. And then at the end of camp, we were standing on the rail one game. And I said to him, I was like, hey, man, I have this vision of being like a band, like creating a band where the instruments are sound or therapeutic instruments, sound bowls, Tibetan bowls, chimes, rainmakers, etc. And I was like, and then the breathing coordinates. So if I'm guiding breath, the audience is doing it as if like a sing along. So I'm imagining like the breathing are the lyrics and then the instruments are the instruments. Does that make sense?
Right.
And I say that to him and he's like, yeah, dude, I'm actually a DJ. and he sends me his stuff on Spotify, and he just got the hand pan.
I didn't know he considered himself an actual DJ.
He might not. I'm considering that for people listening. What would he be? Is he not a?
He's one musical. Of the most mysterious men I've ever met.
Oh,
in
he's
my life.
Incredibly mysterious.
He's incredible.
But he's very musically talented.
Yes.
And so he grabbed that hand pan, and then we broke off for the season. He was in SAC, and he would send me these videos of him playing the hand pan in the hotel rooms. And I was like, whenever you get to San Francisco, we're doing that. I'm going to play bowls. You're going to play the hand pan. I'll do the breathing, and we're going to rip. He came up, and the first time he came up, we filled, I don't think you were there when the Performance Center was completed in San Francisco, but there was this room about the size of, not this whole kitchen area.
Like outfield?
In the outfield. Yeah, and there's this little room, and we packed the room with coaches and players, and we jammed before a game for 30 minutes, 40 minutes or something like that. And we had no idea, dude.
Everyone just sitting down?
Sitting down, unis, the whole bit. And what's funny about it is that, and the professional sports world, in that world, you can't, perceivably, if you're trying something, you can't really be wrong. You have to be considered an expert in anything that you do. Right. So if you just make up a session with a guy and people don't, you can't say that, but me and him were we've never done this before. We don't know what's going to happen. And I remember telling him, he was full Udi. I was like, dude, don't ever tell anybody we're making this up on the spot, but let's just let it rip. You just jam that thing when their eyes are closed. I'll kind of tell you to go higher, lower. So they all think
you've been practicing this and this is the first time you've done it.
We just let it rip, dude. And we had a blast. And then people enjoyed it. And the rest was history. When we got to the off season, we did that first thing in his back porch. We were like, let's record these and just throw them on YouTube. And we were just having fun with it, sort of still making it up. But we were the same reason of what I was telling you with that podcast. Our first time before it, we were like, well, there's cameras in front of us now. What do we do? So we were like, let's just I don't know. And then we boom, clapped. And then we just started rolling.
Lock you right in.
So that's a long story to get it going. So I'll sip over this espresso piece and
I'll get some tea in me too.
Get it in you.
Shout out Spencer Howard.
Yeah, shout out to Spence. He's gotten a few so far. This is the most hydrated products. We got tea, we got waters, and I'm an espresso guy. Have you been over to Europe?
Just did in December.
Come on, you're fresh off a Europe trip.
First Europe trip.
Where are we at? What countries?
Did Stockholm, Sweden.
Sick.
I had ex-teammate in Oklahoma City get married.
Oh, wow.
In Stockholm. So did that for 4 days, Paris for 2, London for 2.
I've never done those ones, but I did Finland and Norway, so which is on the outskirts of Sweden. So we'll call it still Scandinavian countries. 2 years ago. How'd you like Sweden? I mean, it's cold
honestly,
there too.
Probably was my favorite because I had no expectations.
Really?
I didn't know what I was getting into, and it was really cold.
I was going to say, that's a tough time to go. I went in October and it was getting cold and dark.
And it's dark. It's dark. By 3:30, it's dark.
Yeah.
And the sun doesn't come up till 8 o'clock.
And you're California bred.
California bred.
So that's the exact,
I got a little Midwest in me. I was born in Chicago.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
But California bred.
So you go there. Have you been to Europe before this?
Nope. First Europe trip.
All right.
Yeah.
So you got to dive in with me.
Okay.
Because Europe, the reason why I asked you if you've been to Europe is that Europe has coffees this size. Did you notice that?
Yes, I did.
And when I first went to Amsterdam years ago, I was drinking out of a tiny coffee. And I was in America, you don't do that. 20 ounces. This is a little 4 ounce.
Right.
What were some of the things you noticed?
Well, I guess the biggest thing would be the food. How fresh, how tasty it was.
It's wild, isn't it?
Very wild.
Did you stay in hotels?
Stayed in 3 hotels. 3 hotels. We stayed in one hotel in Paris where there was 12 rooms. Just right off this alleyway street.
Cool.
It was really cool. And you walk everywhere.
Yeah.
We walked everywhere. And it didn't even feel like we walked that far. I walked maybe 15 miles one day. And I would have guessed maybe 5.
Well, when you're in that scene, you're just so like, it's so wild on your perspective. Mm-hmm. So I feel like you don't notice how much movement you're doing.
Mm-hmm. And how much history.
And it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you go back in time and you kind of see, that's what it did to me. Cause you kind of learn like how we were established. Mm-hmm. And then you think about it like, okay, we start over there, we migrate over here, and then someone like yourself grows up on the coast in California, which when we got over to the States, I mean, largely we're on the opposite side of the country in New York area, in Boston and those places. And then we work our way all the way to, and I just learned this in recent years of living in California, that California is considered the promised land materially. And that's what we called it. So it was like, get out to the gold rush.
Yeah, that was 1800s.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's it like as a guy who's played Major League Baseball for a few years now? How long have you been playing professionally?
I got drafted in 2015. So 10 years.
Wow. Congrats.
10 years. Thank you. About 4 parts of 4 in the big leagues.
You were a high school draft?
High school draft.
What round you going?
3rd round.
So you were a 3rd round high school guy. You were going to go to Cal Poly. So you were going to stay in California. You get in the 3rd round. You get who drafted you?
Phillies.
Philly. And that's who you came up with, right?
Yep. So literally, the craziest thing too is I got drafted and I was still in high school. Like I was still going to school. So I had
How's that work out?
Well, the draft used to be June 6th to the 8th, something like that. And I didn't graduate till June 18th or 17th.
Is that just
that was a California thing? I think we started later.
Yeah,
we started out the day after Labor Day. And so I had 2 more weeks of school.
Did you know you were going to go?
I took a couple of days to think about it.
Yeah.
But then I signed.
And you signed in school. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Take me through that. You're a high school kid who just signed in the 3rd round, professional sports, and you're sitting in class.
Yeah. And I see.
Tell me you were dialed into history.
Negative. I mean, it was pretty mind blowing reflecting on it because I had never seen that amount. First, I mean, money wise, I'd never seen that amount of money. And I'm like, wow, I get that. Like that's mine. And people couldn't understand that that's how much I was making out of high school. Yeah. And then it was really weird because I was still in high school. So I didn't know what to do. I was like, do I still go to class? Do I try?
Yeah.
And
100%.
I took my finals, did everything, graduated. And then 2 days later, I was on a flight to Florida. So the opposite coast.
Wow.
Yeah.
I still am hung up on the thought of that initial shock of we'll call it 2 weeks when you're in high school still, when you see that number.
Yeah.
I still can't fathom what that had to, and maybe that was too short of a time frame because then you probably get to Florida and you're just immersed in it, right? You're in pro sports.
Thrown in it.
Yeah, you're thrown in it. You got to figure out life. You leave family, you do those sort of things, which is just crazy to think about. When I was going to college, I spent my last summer at home with my boys. I played on my travel team in the summer. I was committed to my university. I hung out all week. I chilled. I had like a really small time summer job. You're seeing a big check and then you're going to play pro ball and you're sitting in class. What's like here's a good question that comes into my mind. What were the things that you learned about life dualistically as false and accurate in that 2 weeks that you think of right now when I ask that? Does that make sense?
So a thing that I thought was true that was false. What are you saying?
That sounds like a cool question too. Is that what it feels like to you?
It's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, roll with it.
I gotta go back 10 years ago.
I'm thinking about because it's a big point, right? Like anytime we have a moment that's like drastically different than what we're used to, you evolve. It could be good or bad, whatever. The point is that like the stimulus of it changes you, and you were in this 2 week stimulus. And so from that 2 week, as we'll call it a trampoline, what was the experience that you learned about yourself in that moment?
Yeah. I think the first thought that I think is like the sink or swim kind of thought.
Okay.
Because I was so in on college. I was convinced I was going to college. And then this happens, money comes, people are coming up to me. Girls start coming up, other girls start coming up to me, and I'm like, whoa, this is really cool. You know, this is it. I just kind of soaked it all in, and I was riding the wave, and it was so cool. But then a couple days later, I was like, man, am I not going to college? You know, I started thinking of not going to college. And then kind of the pressure started hitting me of, wow, this is a big decision. Like, I gotta make this decision. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so fortunately I had my dad, a couple mentors that I spoke to, talked to about this whole situation. And then also through that, you see, you know, you start thinking of like those girls that start paying attention to you, and the people that are like, oh, Luke, let's be friends, you know? And that kind of started sinking in of like, man, this isn't right. You know, like that's not something that, you know, I had fun for a couple of days. I enjoyed it, but then it was like, man, you know, that's not how this should be. You know, those aren't the people that you want to have in your life. And I think that's honestly a great first introduction to this life of baseball, of the media, of, you know, all the things that are to come, you know. So that was honestly a really great introduction of what was to come, honestly.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was leaning into and imagining, because I think that moment happens in everybody's lives to some degree. Wherever that comes from, who knows? We've been in sports our whole life. So sports tends to be the teacher, right? Because you can get that experience in other things, in other professions. But in your case, you got it through baseball. And that's what is interesting to me about sports, is that you learn a lot about life in that moment, I guess. And it's kind of like baseball can kind of like teach you and mirror what society is like in a way. But I think that's where you can lose yourself and also learn yourself, because you could lose yourself in let me say this to you, and tell me what you think about this.
Yeah.
When I was in my young 20s, we had one guy who was in the NHL at the time, and he was making buku bucks. He had a mansion. We were like 24 years old, and we used to go there and have raging parties, and it was epic. And it was cool. It was crazy because we could not have anything going, and this guy would say, let's have a party night. I'm gonna get a chef over here, and we're just invite whoever, and everyone always showed up.
Yeah.
And if anybody else tried to throw a party, you're not, like, people might not come. And one of the things that I noticed over the course of these parties, 4, 5, 6 in a row, I realized that everybody gave this specific individual their A game. So if he said something that was like somewhat funny, everyone thought it was very funny. And I think that's one of the problems of going into money early and then being a professional athlete early, especially out of high school, is a lot of that success can somewhat become this like invisible prison to awareness.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't know if you're supposed to go now.
Yeah, no, I think it's just listening to that and reflecting on experiences that I've been through. You know, a lot of athletes do get trapped in that kind of, can you say that line again? What was that?
Invisible prison. Because you're successful early.
Yeah.
Like if you run into money,
and a lot of guys don't know how to handle that, you know, especially because you're so young.
That's what I'm saying.
Our hockey players, are they usually coming out 19, 20 years old?
Yeah, I mean, they get in there early. Yeah. I don't know what their signing bonuses are like. I know baseball obviously way faster, but I think it's the same. I just think that when you run into money later on in life, or perceivable like social status, I think that I don't know if it's ever easier or hard, whatever. I don't know. I think it said everyone comes to these things at different points in their life. I just think when you're so young and you're not even in your 20s, what were you, 17, 18?
18.
Yeah, so you're 18 years old, and now this comes onto you. And like I said, it can build this prison around you of not being able to understand how reality works. And that's why I used that example with that guy, is that I noticed that I noticed that I would say something or he would say something and everyone would laugh, or somebody else would say something that was kind of funny, but no one really laughed. But it was because it was the hierarchy. It was like, this is the top of the hierarchy and everyone gives that person their A game. And I felt empathy and compassion for that situation because it felt like a prison. Because it was like, that's not real life. And that's what I'm saying. And you just acknowledge that if athletes feeling that, that's the same thing. And I can only imagine when you're sitting in class, is that now all of a sudden you're an 18-year-old in high school and instantaneously everyone's treating you different. It's not their problem either. It's humans being humans. But that's, you personally have to carve through that. And that's why I asked, what was that 2-week spell that made you learn?
Do you think you got, I mean, you saw that right away when you were 24, 25 years old? Like, was that something that you felt like you noticed when you were at the parties? Like you would take a step back and be like, man, this is what's going on? Or do you think it took a couple of years for you to kind of
pick up on
it, or to be like, all right, this is what's kind of going on?
Yeah, good question. No, I said this to him one night before we had a party. I said this years ago. I said, it's weird how everyone just laughs at your stuff. And then another guy was a friend of mine, a football player. We used to talk about this all the time. And I started noticing that we hung out with a ton of different people, because you know how it is. And you get invited. It's not hard to get invited to the party. Let's put it that way.
And more times than not, you're not going to say no.
Right. And it's in the party, metaphorically in this scenario, is you start to see the surface of personality and the surface of authenticity. It's not that deep. And this is what, over time, as I've now been with pro athletes coaching for a long time, I've just seen repetition of the same thing. You see people who get success really early, they get money early, and it actually hurts them psychologically and spiritually, because the thing around them is so I don't want to say fake, but we'll say fake to just meet a generalization term. They have this fake surrounding around them. It becomes this invisible prison, this like bubble. And for the person, like, you are a person with a soul and a spirit and an experience and these interpretations, et cetera, et cetera. And you almost have to break through that. And the hardest thing to break through it is that you have this perceivable success. So it's like, we don't tell stories about that. We America tells stories about the hard part. Like, no one tells stories about, okay, you just got that money, well, your life's perfect.
Yeah, everyone just assumes that we don't have the same sort of issues or encounters that you have to overcome. You know, and I was thinking a lot as you were talking, and I was thinking a lot about my journey. I guess not necessarily when I got drafted, but the journey of minor leagues, big leagues, and how I've experienced a lot of failure, a lot of hiccups, so you call, whatever. And when you're in that negativity, it hurts. It's an awful feeling. And especially doing it at 21, 22 years old, and you're seeing all your buddies at college partying, drinking, having the time of their life. But without those moments, for me, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. And I think that through those experiences, it has brought me such a incredible perspective of life. You know? Because if I didn't go through those failures, the hiccups, anything like that, I wouldn't be so grateful for the happy moments. Honestly, I'm very happy. I'm very grateful for those negatives as well. Reflecting back,
you have to be,
because man, it's just so, it's powerful to look back and be like, man, you know what? I got through that. I got through that. I didn't let it affect me, or I didn't let it stop me. I could have absolutely gone home and joined those guys at their colleges or back home for summer. You know, I could have just gone back and done that, but I didn't. And it's just the continual overcoming of failure and adversity. You know, I love that word adversity because baseball is the perfect sport to just explain life, I think, because there's so much adversity.
Yeah, I think that's what's come back to me all the time too. Even on the other side of playing and just thinking about being a coach in it, it's what you're saying, because you don't have control over things, right? And you leave and you go to Florida and you end up, or you're essentially on your own, and then you move on. And again, you're still in these young stages, so you can see other people and you get the FOMOs, you get the what could have beens. And when you're probably in the middle of A ball and you're 0 for 27 at one point, I'm sure that's happened. And you're looking
in Batavia, New York, or
yes, wherever. Exactly. Like it's a no-brainer. It's happened, you know, and you keep like pursuing things. I think that eventually what happens is it carves into you and you become because ideally you're trying to become your most authentic self in life. Because just someday you're going to be not a baseball player. And I told you this before we got on this. So one of the things that I gravitated towards you when I first met you was you were doing photography. And you took the camera out and we went on a hike in Cleveland with a bunch of other guys. You were somewhat new to the team. And I've always thought that somebody who does those things in environments that they not, because I don't know if you felt comfortable or not, that's not really the point. To me, an outsider, you were new to the team and you were younger. And I think that was a year after your rookie year. So you're kind of still new in the league. And we had some veterans with us at the time. And you were just like you in the moment. We were out in nature. We had an off day. You're taking photos. You're studying things. You're asking questions. And to me, in a pursuit of baseball, sometimes so often it can feel like that's all of your life. And because it largely is, and according to specific, just purely time. But I really gravitated towards you because I felt like that was something more than baseball. You were just somebody who was excited to explore. You enjoyed meeting people. You enjoyed seeing what cities had to offer. You were out there open-minded. And that's what I told you. That's what stood up to me in that first week. And I think a lot of that is, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, and do you feel connected to what I just said for your own self?
Absolutely. I think that listening to you say that gave me a whole new perspective of that situation, because all I thought of was, I'm going on a hike with the boys. Like, I just bought this camera. Like, I'm sure I'd get some awesome pictures. Yeah. You know, and just, but being able to listen to you talk like that was really eye-opening for me. And it was awesome.
Well, you leave your high school, you leave your hometown, you go across the country, and you've been doing that until this very moment. Yeah. And now you're living in Arizona. And it's like through the last, 10 years, I mean, and you talk about adversity and those sort of things, through the last decade of your life and kind of figuring things out. What has been what is the thing that has made you continuously curious about the simplicity of, I'm just here right now and I'm on a hike with the boys? But there's more to that, because it's deeper than that.
It's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah.
And I actually just finished reading this book, The Power of Now.
Oh, Eckhart Tolle. Yeah. Beautiful book.
Beautiful book. And I feel like I could be, even at this moment right now, I feel like I can be even more present. And in baseball, I feel in life, when I'm away from baseball, I feel very present. I feel I do what I enjoy, and I just go with it. You know, I think in baseball at times, us baseball players struggle a lot with being in the moment, because it's about results. You know, you're thinking about you're 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts the day before, or you're thinking, man, like, where am I going to be in a couple days? For a player like me who's kind of bounced around, you know, you're thinking forward, backward, and that brings a lot of unnecessary stress. And so I feel that in my everyday life, I'm pretty present, and that's just kind of how I feel like I've been. But I feel that in my baseball life, I feel I can improve a lot better in that.
Do you feel like you feel that because in your baseball life, the result of that is statistically more successful, and in your general life, you're not bound by the chains of a statistic or a potential monetary gain?
Definitely.
You think there's a difference there?
Right. Yeah, because no one's measuring how happy I am.
Right.
Or how happy the beach makes me feel.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But someone's going to measure the amount of strikeouts I have,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of home runs I have, you know? And so it's just, it's difficult, but it's being like, I'm challenging myself to play this game like I'm living my life. You know, where it's I'm in the present moment. If I strike out, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And being able to let go, being able to let go of the result, not be attached to the result, and to just live minute by minute, second by second.
What does that feel like when you're in, I mean, I think the Braves Stadium, what's the name of that?
Truist Park.
Truist Park. I think it's one of the most, I think it's top 3 for me in the league.
It's legit.
It's legit. When we first went there, I remember walking up on the field and I was like, this is the show.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a beautiful place. And the fans are super into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's great culture. Obviously, it's a big baseball.
I also didn't realize, because not only do you have the Georgia State rooting for you, you have Tennessee, you got Alabama, you got the Carolinas.
Because they don't have teams.
They don't have teams. So there's
that makes a lot of sense.
There's a big group of, you know.
You're also in a baseball mecca of the country. Like, that is big baseball.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are playing baseball there. And the colleges scene is huge there for baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's powerful. Okay, that's even makes it even better than to have this thought.
Mm-hmm.
When you're playing in Truist Park,
mm-hmm.
and it's packed, 40,000 plus people, and they're buzzing because they make some noise there.
Oh, yeah.
Do you even have the capacity to consider letting things go in real time, or is the game happening at a pace with so much energy, sound, volume, vibration, frequency, your career, things, boom, 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 boom? Are you able to have the awareness in game to let things go, or is that something that comes to you post games in terms of reflection?
I believe that it can happen in the game. In game. I believe so. I believe it happens. I believe I'm able to do it from time to time. I think that's what some of the best players in baseball do.
Yeah.
Because, you know, even like in at bat, where you come in with an approach, you swing at a pitch, and then it's like, all right, I got to step back, take a step back, reassess, adjust, go back in, hit. You know, I feel that's as in the moment as you can be in that situation. And that's what I feel some of the best players do in baseball. And that's what I'm striving to get to, because the crowd's the crowd.
Right.
And I thought of this, it was Corey Seager when they won the World Series last year. I think he said something that he doesn't even remember the crowd because he was so so locked in. And I think I
feel like that was after he hit a grand slam.
After a grand slam.
I remember that.
And his emotion
came out. Yeah.
But you talk to him about it, he goes, I don't even remember it.
Yeah.
I don't remember the crowd. I don't remember any of that. And that's something that I strive to get to.
Yeah, that's where I think that, hang with me on this thought,
Yeah.
and I'm sure I'm going to talk about this a lot, just because it's so relevant in my mind over the last couple of years of being in this thought. Because what you're talking about right now is what I'm fascinated by. Just the thought of it.
I've been fascinated by it for the
it's
last
incredible.
couple of years.
It's incredible, right? And the thing that I think makes sports so beautiful is that on the surface of this, you are in a thing that society deems as incredibly important. Like the Braves are the reality TV show for all those states that you just mentioned. And I'm not downplaying being a fan. I'm just trying to talk about this generally and materially. And you yourself are your own thing. You're your own organism walking around, your own life, your own experience. And eventually when you're done with the game, like the game's going to move on. They show that with all the greats. I mean, they're not talking about Derek Jeter anymore after the games. They move on with it, you know? And so, okay. So if I can step outside, if I can detach as an individual, I'm talking about you in this scenario, if you can detach from what it is at the surface, what it is with the money that's involved, the status of it, how many people love it, what it is, all those things. And you have an experience to you. So you're getting a thing for you, to you. And it's when you're in pre-pitch, you can step out, get myself settled, then I can go back into the box. And I can do that amidst all these things material. I can go beyond that and find presence and things I can't even describe or explain. I can find that in my lifetime. You've literally had real-time examples in your life where you've been able to experience that. And I think the thing that's cool to me, talking to athletes or studying this, because I study this for my own self, how can I look at somebody do that and then put that in my own life for my own work? What is it about when you say you go to the beach and you feel at peace, or you're in your own life and you're at peace and you feel like you're in the present? That correlation to those extreme real-time experiences that you've had, that has to mean more than any of the material side of the game imaginable. It's got to be bigger than the money or the fans or the crowds or et cetera.
Absolutely. Well, just first couple thoughts I'm thinking of is in those situations of Truist Park, crowd, everything, you have to, I mean, it takes a lot of work to get your mind into that state. It takes an incredible amount of focus, incredible amount of breathing, just focusing on your breathing. And it's a lot of work. And then for me, when I go to the beach and just sit down, that doesn't take a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess, you know, and it's not that I don't think as humans we're afraid of the work. It's just it's a lot simpler to be able to go to the beach and shut down.
Yeah, I just think that I think that you get deeper into shutting down at the beach because you've exposed yourself to certain stimulus in your life. What I'm saying is
because I've hit such a high.
Yeah. Like you've been exposed to those. And that's what I'm going towards.
And you think that's why I'm appreciating that scenario of being at the beach.
I think so.
And experiencing that sort of peace and because I've had to work so hard to get that inner focus in baseball.
I think so. I mean, it's like this. It's like meditation. The reason why meditating is really difficult is because when you first start doing it, and any time, I've been meditating for a long time and it happens every single time. When you first sit down and close your eyes and try to follow your breathing, it's very difficult. And you're a human. So things are going in and out of your brain. Now, if you're willing to work really hard and see through that and keep maintaining focus, it eventually fades. And you can go into these trans states of focus and you are truly connected with your breath and you're just in it. You're flowing. Now, you can be a monk and rid yourself of all material possessions and go live in the cave and do that forever and be at peace and be at flow. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that that's beautiful. I've spent some time with some monks talking about this. I think it's great. And I find that to be really powerful. But even that in and of itself is a radical extreme to all of it's choosing not to play in the game. So when I'm asking you this question, you're talking literally about both. You're essentially being your monk self at the beach, breathing, flowing, ridding yourself of everything because you're not caring what your number is, what your stats are, how you played in that game. You're not getting any hate mail. You're not getting any of that stuff, you know? But then you're also on the other side of on the paradox side, you're also playing in the extreme side. And that's what the guy that I used to be able to hang with, who was a monk, for a certain time. That was one of the things I used to communicate with them. You can't go be the monk in the cave. Like, good luck when you're in Truist Park trying to hit. The guy's throwing 98 miles an hour. And like, what do you do now? And so what I've always found a beautiful thing of life is to, and I'm not denying the point of being the monk. I'm just talking about being able to hold both paradoxes simultaneously. And what does that do for us as a person? And that's exactly what I'm saying toward you, is that on one side, it's like you can take this practice to the beach, understimulate yourself and breathe and follow your breathing. It seems pretty easy. And everything in your brain goes away and you just get into that trance. But I think that goes deeper because you've also put yourself through 10 years of adversity and exposed yourself to hard times over and over and over again. And you've been in a stadium and you've had to take that beach presence and try to incorporate that in real time within seconds in front of thousands of people on national television.
Chaos. I mean, it's chaos.
It's chaos. And so now the extremism of being a monk and going radical is extremely hard and difficult. And there's that side of it. I just think that it's a cool thing to take principles from all these aspects. And can you do both? Can you be my friend has a company called Savage and Saint. Can you be a savage when I'm getting ready to hit? Can I be a saint in pre-pitch and be a savage when I'm getting ready to hit? Be a savage or a saint in pre? Can I continuously balance both sides of who I am? And I think that for whatever reason, I think that does something to people.
Yeah, and the big thing, like you said, is the balance of it. That because in my experience, I've had both those times where, you know, I'm playing a game and I feel like the saint is there a lot, is more present. And then there'll be some games where I feel like the devil or whatever is the savage is coming in, and it, you know, it's just being able to balance to trying to find that perfect balance. But that's life. Life is trying to find a balance. You know, I think I love that word balance. Yeah.
I think you adapt the most when you're balanced.
Yeah.
So what does it feel like when so obviously you can't, the Corey Seager analogy, for sure, there's no way he can describe what that flow state was like. But can you describe balance in like a more intellectual, like practical side? When you felt out of balance, when you felt in balance, can you do that in game? What do you do? What are things that have come to you to be successful?
Well, honestly, the breath is the biggest thing. And I have you to thank a lot for.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, because honestly, going into the breath, I never really did much meditation, breathing until I met Mr. Harvey Martin.
That's
on
great.
one day with the San Francisco Giants. And I think that you were the first to kind of bring that curiosity of the breath to me. And I continually do my Wim Hof breathing every morning. Cool. And I feel like that puts me in a really good balance of awareness, but alertness, you know, of like, I'm aware, I'm, you know, calm, cool, collective, but I'm also, you know, alert and ready for the day to fire, you know? Yeah. And I feel that I've just continued to be aware and fall back on that breath to bring me balance.
Do you remember, I feel like we did breath work one time in the bullpen in Cleveland.
Yes.
It was cold out.
It was cold. It was just you and me. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I think we walked by probably the Cleveland bullpen catcher or something. Yeah. I remember we were laying on my back.
Yeah. I remember doing that.
Yeah. We did that one.
Yeah. We were jamming. Well, I think you have a really difficult position because you are used in so many unique ways. I mean, you're going to have to tell me more because I'm just talking as the minimal times I was on the other side this past year watching you. But I mean, you'll be in games where you don't know when you're going to get in recently. I mean, you're running the bases, you're pinch running, you're going into late in the game at bats, starting a game, sitting a game, whatever. You're kind of going all these things. So you've been in, it seems like balance would seem very important to you because in your experience, you've had to battle chaos and handle chaos. And how would you handle that without having controllable tools to balance yourself? I would imagine that's probably why you found some success in awareness and understanding your breathing. But what's that been like on your mind? And tell me if I'm wrong on how. That's just what I've seen from afar.
You're 100% correct. You know, I the last couple of years have been more of a bench roll situation where I have to be ready to go in, you know, at any point in the game, whether it's defense, base running, pinch hit. And it was really difficult to handle at the beginning.
I bet.
Because I didn't have a routine. I didn't really know what to do. It was more of, all right, I'm just going to hit off the machine and then go in there. And that journey of being a bench player has given me a great respect for routine. And how much a routine for whether I'm on the bench or whether I'm playing starting that day, how important a routine is. And that daily routine of it can be, you know, get into the field and do your breathing right away, or get to the field, go to the gym, you know, etc. But the routine has been, I think, the core of it for me. Of, you know, I find the routine, I do my routine, and then I know that I'm prepared. And whenever my name gets called,
you're good.
I'll be there.
Is that pretty difficult to, I mean, baseball, you're at the field all day. So it's like, let's say it's a 7:05 game and you don't get in till 9. That happens, right? Yeah.
What do you mean?
If you have 7:05 start time, you don't get in the game till.
Oh yeah, 9 o'clock. Oh yeah.
I was trying to do the math. I mean,
9:15, 9:30. Yeah, right around there.
But you're at the field at like 1. So, I mean, I'm a big believer in the fact that...
Yeah, I'd get there at 12:45.
Yeah, so you get there at 12:45, you're not playing a game for 9 hours. How do you handle that much time? I mean, it's not... And before you answer that, the reason why I say this aggressively, handling that much time, in my opinion, the second you walk through those doors in any stadium, you're in it.
You're in it.
You're in it.
You are in it.
Yeah. So like it might seem on the surface like some guys are just sitting in their locker. You're in it. You're on it. You're thinking it. You're eating it.
Yeah, you can't escape it.
You can't escape it.
You're in it, and especially just the amount of people that you're seeing walking around.
Tons of people. Media.
So many people. Yeah. Media. They're coming to ask you questions. There's analytic coaches walking around. There's the on-field coaches.
There's people like me walking around in your ear. But it's real. But it's real. You still got me bugging you.
Right.
I mean, we're all bugging you.
Right.
So what is that like? I mean, that's what I'm saying about routine. It's like, I mean, we're poking fun at it, but I'm being serious. Like, that's a 9 hour, you got to try to manage energy for 9 hours. And then honestly, a lot of your career relies on, can you now face in the game now one of the nastiest arms imaginable at 9:30 at night. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're breathing, man.
Good luck, kid.
Hope you're breathing pretty good. But you know what I'm saying? Obviously I'm painting a big vivid picture of it, but that is what it's like. So it's like, what are things, because I got to imagine early in your career that was pretty difficult, and I'm sure it still is. But you can fatigue yourself without even moving because we're burning fuel in our brains. So how do you go through a day where that potential could happen? And it happens often.
Yeah. I mean, see, I usually get in, I go out, I have this routine I do out on the field, go in, work out. I just try and I fill it in the cage. I go on the field, do ground balls. It's just, Obviously, I've been in it for 4 years now, big league level, and I'm still learning. I'm still adding. I'm still deleting. You know, it's just. I think I've accepted the forever evolution of it, and once I know that I've completed the routine, you know, pretty much once batting practice is done, I try and just shut off for at least an hour. You know, whether that's we've got a pretty awesome kind of like players lounge area in the clubhouse where you can just lay down and shut down, and then you fire back up again.
Yeah, you turn it back up.
You got to turn it back on. And that was the hard. I think that may be one of the most difficult parts, is doing the whole day, shutting it down, and then firing it back up. Is probably, it's a part that I struggle with the most. And I don't know if I struggled with the shutting down part or how I think about it, the rallying back up, because I don't think you can fire it back up without being able to, shut it down for a little bit.
Sure.
Be able to kind of somehow shut that brain off, whether that's meditation or a little cat nap.
Yeah. I mean, the turning back up, because you got to try to time it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like even if you turn up too early, too soon at the field and you burn yourself out, that's had to have happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure has. I mean, there'll be, there's probably a couple times during the game where might be dozing off a little bit.
Well, that's where the game is so unbelievably special, because of how difficult that is. And I think that the inner workings of that are really, really important and really crucial. There's this thing, I think it's called your circadian is your sun rhythm. Ultradian, something along those lines, is your focus rhythm. And according to the science around this, I believe you have 2 90-minute cycles where your brain can be hyper focused on extreme peak where you want it to be for about 90 minutes without any distraction, whatever. And so in like a working sense and a creative sense, you essentially try to design your day to have 2 of those 90-minute windows, and everything is low stress up into that moment, right? So for me, when I'm writing a book, I use this practice. I get up around 7, I meditate for 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour. I go for a long walk, no sound. I just kind of get the sun in my eyes. I walk, I'm hydrating. When I get back, I get a coffee in me and I journal. And because usually at that point, like stuff's starting to flow out of me, and I'll engage with the world, go check out social media, check my emails, see if I got text, if I have to make any calls. And I do that while I'm having coffee. And then the second I finish my coffee, I typically either do some like cold tub or a shower, just like some water, because water tends to bring that creativity out of you. Yeah, just like kind of get you going. And then I sit down on the computer and I write like a madman for 90 to 120 minutes without stopping. And I airplane phone it. I get no distractions. And I did that. I've done that in season for my last 2 books. And I've written a book in season because I just dominate that 90 hour or 100 minutes or so. But I bring this up to you because, if I were to take some of those principles and I think about it in baseball, and I give that 9-hour window that we just talked about, and it's really like 10 to 11 because you have post game too, and so we kind of this 10-hour window, but only 2.5 of them actually matter. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, I think this is, tell me how this felt earlier in your career or even now if you're still battling with it. I think we drastically, in the industry, we drastically don't appreciate how turned on you are when you come through the doors. And now all of a sudden you miss these massive windows of focus because you might have used them up. Like, why would you use up your main focus, attention, and energy at 4:00 scouting report meetings and your workouts and all these things? And now it's all of a sudden it's 7:30 and it's the 3rd inning and you got no energy left.
Yeah. So then what do you like, how could we, like, I feel like maybe it needs to be, because you're saying the 2 90-minute windows, like, are you able to have 2 separate 90-minute windows before the game?
No, I think that you would flip-flop it if I'm an athlete. Like, what I'm saying is I use my fuel in the early parts of the day. And honestly, when I'm not in season,
you're saying like right when you wake up?
Yeah, I do that. I do it because later on in the day I'm toast, dude. Like, I don't even like talking to people on the phone after probably like another hour and a half from now. I shut it down. I can't focus at 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And maybe it turns back on a little bit later in the evening and I get creative again. And that's when I like having people over for dinner and or maybe I still do an evening podcast. But I'm thinking about if I'm an athlete in my time in which I need to metaphorically be writing my book with full attention is at 6:45 or at 7. So it's like if you get up at 9 a.m., you have a full day before you have to turn on.
Right.
I don't know. I don't have an answer.
I mean,
I don't have an answer for any of this
either.
Yeah, it's just something that I think makes the game so hard on the player because the player then has to do it every night for 6 straight months.
162 games.
Yeah. And it's like it's really difficult because of all the demands that we do. Like in hockey, they practice in the morning.
And they go home, right?
Go home.
Yeah.
They hang out with their families, their kids. My buddy plays with Utah. He calls me after every nap on his way to the arena, and he'll play a game on. We watched him the other night on TNT. I think the game started at 7. This dude was on the phone with me at 5:15, driving to the arena.
Wow.
And he just got there, and literally the second we hung up the phone, I went and got food, and we cooked it really quick. And we weren't in a rush, but we were like attentively getting the dinner done so I could not miss the drop of the puck. And it's like I was just on the phone with this guy in his car, driving to the arena. And it's like, if I don't pay attention, he's going to be on TV here soon. In baseball, you talk to somebody before they go to the field, you can go home and work a full day job and then go see them on TV.
I know. It's crazy. I mean, I think, is basketball similar too?
I think so. I don't know basketball as much.
I don't know basketball either.
But yes.
That's pretty mind-blowing to think as well, because what if baseball turned to that? I wonder what that would
Well, what do you think would happen, hypothetically? Let's imagine you did that for a day. You went to the field.
At what, 9 a.m.?
We'll say you got there, yeah. Let's say you woke up at 8:15, 8:15. You get to the field by 9:15, 9:30. You're having breakfast. And you're having your coffee. By 10:15.
Like a spring training day.
Yeah, and by 10:15, you're on the field hitting. And you hit till, I don't know. You take it from here.
Yeah, hit on the field for BP would probably be hour 15. Puts you at 11:30, right? 11:30.
Get a lunch to go,
shower up, and then meet back at the field at 5 o'clock. Get going. Man, that's
How's that sound?
We need to present this to someone, maybe.
I mean, yeah. How do you think that would, again, hypothetically, what do you think that does if you go back home, you take a nap, you're kicking it, maybe you're at the beach and you're hanging out. Yeah, you're at the beach hanging out, and then you take a nap, and then you get back to the field, you rip a shot of espresso with the pregame dinner.
You get going. Boys get going.
Do you think it's harder to going back to what you originally said, sometimes it's hard to turn back on? Do you think that would be harder or more in line?
Just initial thought, I thought it'd be more, I think it'd be better. It'd be easier to turn up in that scenario. I think.
I do too.
But imagine everyone adjusting to that. Like the adjustment process to that would be pretty wild.
For the players?
For the players, I feel like. Because we've been so ingrained in this routine and what we do every single day. And then it's like, hey, we're going to change it up. That's pretty intriguing.
I mean, change is always hard in anything. But yeah, I think I just think that aligns more with our physiology, our bodies.
Right.
And everything I'm after always is your physiology. Because I think that when you're toasted in your mind, it's largely because you've just been burning the fuel all day. And I think that happens to ball players on a daily basis. That's why I asked you about your position, because I think that your position is incredibly difficult. One of the things what stands out to me is, have you ever noticed how a guy comes up from AAA and you've been in this position and they started every game in AAA and they report being less fatigued in AAA games than major league games, and they only pinch hit in the big league game? And that has always been a question of mine. It's like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
How is it possible that you play 2.5 hours every night in AAA and you come here and you played for 7 minutes and you're exhausted? And if that doesn't prove to you that our mind is moving and burning fuel, then we need, as an industry, we need to think twice.
Right. I had a teammate too with the Phillies when he came up. You know, you have all the food in the world. You can grab bars. You can have a chef make you food.
Yeah.
But he couldn't eat. He ended up losing. He was up for a month. Didn't play very much, but he lost 20 pounds because he couldn't eat. He was just, his body, his brain, it was just going
all day,
24/7.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Did he feel like that in the minor leagues?
Nope.
Just when we got to the big leagues?
Just the big leagues.
What is it like when you get to what is the like, is it that drastic?
Mm-hmm.
It is.
AAA big leagues? Yeah, night and day.
Like, you got how?
Just the environment. When you're in AAA, you're playing in front of 5,000-6,000 people. It's a old minor league stadium more times than not. The lights aren't very high or bright. And then you go to the big leagues and 40,000 people, cameras in your face, media people, and it's night and day compared to the minor leagues. So that's just the whole journey in itself. And I don't think there's a way to recreate it.
No.
You just gotta sink or swim.
Do you over time, the lights and cameras got to die down eventually and become just another day?
It does. Yeah. I think with a player who goes up and down, mm-hmm. I think that maybe the first couple days, usually it's a little bit of a readjustment. Like, okay, all right, we're back, lights, camera, action, that kind of thing. And then you get into it.
Yeah. Once you get into the mix, you're in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you notice, like, sometimes does it ever feel like it's not necessarily baseball because it's so show? Like, it's a show.
It is a show.
Yeah.
Especially now with like the different colored shoes, right, the sleeves, bat flipping, it's a full on show.
Right.
And watching players play with a mic on.
That's weird to me.
That's so weird to me.
I guess it's opinion. I think that would be incredibly stressful.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know if my brain would be able to handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is wild. That part, that's been unique to me recently. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that's an interesting side of it. Again, it just kind of goes back. Okay, here's a thought that comes to my mind. With the show, how do you move beyond the illusion of the show and maintain focus on your routine, on needing to play, on improving your skills? What are the things that you found or what's that process like when you have to move beyond the show and you have to get through it to stay, this is my craft. Yeah. This is how I get better.
Yeah. I fall back to my breathing and my routine.
Okay.
Those are two main things that I do.
Yeah.
And through that, I think for me, something that works is, maybe trying to picture like I'm playing high school football or high school baseball game.
Okay.
Try to visualize playing with my boys in high school. Those are some good glory days.
Right.
Yeah. One thing that I've really got into is drawing. So I draw a lot of situations. I have this notebook where I'll draw myself hitting a double off of, for example, Justin Verlander.
Okay.
Or I'm hitting a triple off of Zach Wheeler.
Sure.
I tried to
recreate it,
put that in my brain, the picture in my brain, so that I'm kind of trying to manifest it, And so that's been one thing that I feel like has helped me a little bit as well.
When did you start doing that?
Last year. Did
that just come to you intuitively?
No. So I actually started working with a guy who's big into, he's done like 40 years of studying the brain. And he recommended me to do that, which draw and just put the picture in my head so that when it happens, it's a feeling of, oh, I've already seen this before.
Sure.
Where I've already hit this double off Zach Wheeler. It's just another day in the park, So it's not trying to, it's trying to just, I guess part of it's trying to calm the situation down.
Yeah.
And another part of it is just instilling that in your brain so that happens. You're manifesting it.
Well, do you feel different when you do certain exercises like that as a person? Like as you're doing it, do you start to feel your body, your mentality change?
I feel it more like maybe a week later when I look back at it.
Why is that?
I think my brain, maybe I need a little more, maybe, I don't know if it's reassurance or sometimes I just need a little bit of time to let it kind of sink in. And my mind's just go. And I think maybe once I, look back at it a week later, it's like, yeah, you know what? I did draw that.
Sure. Yeah.
It's going to happen. That's just kind of the initial thought of thinking that.
Yeah, I just wonder because I always consider this, I call it the time delay. Everything that I've ever everything you've accomplished in your life, you've probably seen. Like everything you're doing even right now, like you've envisioned it. Would you even...
Do you ever feel... I always feel like sometimes, I don't know if you've ever felt this way before, where I'll just be doing something and a situation will come up where it's like maybe me walking through your front door and something will hit me almost like it's like deja vu. Like it's happened before.
That does happen to me.
Have you felt that?
Yeah, that happens to me. I don't say a lot, but it's happened to me enough where I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah,
that's a pretty intriguing feeling.
It really is. I think the mind and okay, what have you been learning about, step outside of baseball, I suppose, and maybe you got to stay in baseball for the answer. But when you think of the power of now, I read that book a long time ago and I was really into his work for a minute there. Still am. I just have been on different stuff, but like all the stuff we're talking about, manifesting, vision, deja vu in that scenario, letting go, pressure, routine, maintaining energy, etc. It's like, what do you think that we see in life? Like your perspective in life. What do you think that you've learned about here's a question that comes around. What do you think the meaning of perspective is?
The meaning of perspective?
Yeah. How do you like that question?
It's a deep question. I don't know if I have a question for you right now.
Well, you're supposed to have an answer.
I have an answer. It's just rocking me silly because it was such an in-depth question. Meaning of perspective. I'm going to have to think about that one. I think I might have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah, take your time on it. It just came to me and I got to think about it too.
Yeah.
It's because this is the thing, right? I had my buddy over here. I have a friend. I have a couple friends that I went to college with who became a priest. And I had another friend who was talking to me about becoming a priest. And there's another friend in the mix. A lot of priest talk here. There's another friend who is in the process of becoming a priest. Cool. So we kind of have like preparing to become one becoming one is one, right? And we're having these discussions. And we're talking about faith and religion, and we're talking about God and your perspective of those things. Now, I just wrote in my book, my second chapter, I wrote abstract God being the point of we can't interpret reality the same. So when you're talking to a priest, I said to the guy, I'm essentially saying to this guy, like, if I ask you a question, I know you're going to have an answer for me, which is great, because if I go to a baseball coach and I ask him a question, he's going to have an answer for me. If I go to the teacher, I need that. Like, we need that. We need mentorship. We need to pass the torch. We need to help each other. It's like players on the plane who older guys tell younger guys, or you tell other guys here's what I've had to delete in my routine. Right. I would probably delete that. Like you're just, where I'm going. Yeah. You're following me. But if I go back to my thought of the meaning of perspective, and the conversation I just had with this guy is the way in which I've understood perspective is that everyone's perspective is different. And if I go large scale and think 8 billion people now have a different perspective to what this is, what's the meaning behind 8 billion different interpretations of reality. And that's where it becomes like a fascinating thought for me, because if you're drawing a picture and visualizing something in the future that's very direct and very distinct, I'll devil's advocate to you for a second. You might only face a Wheeler 3 times. Okay, well, you're going to face so many other pitchers. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with, it's a cool exercise. But what's the meaning of the perspective? Mm-hmm. Like, what is that drawing? What are you intentionally trying to pull out of you? Mm-hmm. And that's where I think of how fascinating perspective is in general. Because, okay, I have a perspective. Great. What's the meaning of it? Mm-hmm. And what's the intention of it? And my buddy, who, when we were talking about religion in this aspect, he had said something to me very bluntly. He said, you get what you ask for. It's good or bad. You send it out into the universe. God brings it back to you and what you ask for. That's intentionality. I have these intentions. And whatever I ask for through prayer, manifestation, whatever this is, it comes back to me. And that's where individually this whole thing becomes really unique, because you run these hamster wheels of these personalities you've had for so long, and then you get these exposures to lessons like hitting in front of 40,000 people and being able to let go moment to moment. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but what does that do to perspective? What is your perspective?
Yeah.
I know I went ranted for a minute there.
Perspective. I mean, it's forever evolving, right? Like,
it has to be.
Like, everyone's perspective is always, I don't have the same perspective of baseball as I did when I was 8.
Yeah. How could you?
You know, I mean, it's forever changed.
You don't have perspective of it when you signed out of high school.
Yeah.
In June.
Uh-huh.
You don't have perspective of it, the AAA to the big leagues. Mm-hmm. So what is that? Like,
one of life's biggest questions.
Right. What does it pull out of you? Okay, let's go with that one. And we can think about coming down on the roller coaster here for a second. What has that done for you in your life? What has your perspective, what have you had to shatter of perspective? What have you had to evolve of perspective? What have you learned about, we'll go that one. Maybe not the meaning.
What have I learned about
What have you learned about perspective?
I've learned that for me at a certain point, a lot of my perspectives were influenced by other people. I think that I allowed people to change my perspective and to, adjust it. But I've tried to, I guess, create my own perspective and to know that, or to, I don't believe my perspective, or to trust it, trust the initial thought perspective of what my brain's telling me instead of listening or letting other people adjust it.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Because it's, I mean,
it's really
there's
powerful.
There's some people that if you were to change my perspective on something, of breathing, or, it's a trustful person that, all right, like, maybe my perspective of this is wrong.
I see.
But if Joe walking down the street tells me how bad I am at baseball,
it probably doesn't land with you.
No. And it shouldn't land. That perspective shouldn't land with me, because I don't know you. Even
and let me be me in this. Mm-hmm. Even if I do say something to you that maybe is a perspective change and you trust me, okay, well, that's also scary on my end too, because it's like, what if, like, my advice, people come to me for advice a lot. Mm-hmm. I hate giving advice because I don't know your perspective. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And how do I know that how can I give you advice? Yeah. But when there's trust,
and there's something like, how do you feel like it's going to land with the other person?
No, it's just more of like, what if he does it? Mm-hmm. What if he doesn't do it? What if he does it and it doesn't work out? What if he does it and it works out a ton, but then he builds an even bigger invisible prison? Whatever. Mm-hmm. The point is that it's hard to give people advice because I can't be you. I have no idea what it's like to hit in front of 40,000 people. I have zero idea. I can tell you what it's like to write a book. You know, I can tell you what it's like to hike up these mountains all around Europe and why I've started drinking 4-ounce coffees. But I go back to the 8 billion people who have different perspectives. I think that we definitely help each other by giving advice and those sort of things. But for you said, you've learned to have your own brain, trust your own gut, your own intuition. And maybe you come to someone like me because you just want to get a deeper perspective or a different perspective, but you know yourself so well that you're able to filter even what someone like myself might say.
Yeah. Do you think, well, I'm just thinking of you, the advice thing I was thinking. I mean, that I feel like that's a situation where do you feel at times fear comes into that perspective? I mean, fear is like I'm fearful of a lot of things.
Me too.
You know,
Yeah.
we all are.
Yeah.
But I think fear can be a big kind of kryptonite as well.
Well, I think there's a duality to all these things. And because that's the contract that we have with the human experience. That's the classic yin and yang. That's suffering. Human suffering is that we have to, you get to have excitement in life, but you don't get to have excitement without fear. So you don't get to not have fear. So the human contract is that. And it's like, yeah, I think that one of the things that I've learned about fear is that I think the point, okay, maybe this is mean into perspective. Maybe we're going to get our answer. I think the point of duality as a human, which forms our unique perspective that we bring to the world, I'm going to answer it and then you have to answer it.
Okay,
is that fair?
Okay.
My answer to the meaning of perspective is this. I think collectively the whole world is interconnected. And I think that we're playing the same thing out similarly, meaning I'm you just as much as you are me, because I have fear and I know that you have fear. And so therefore, when I watch you go out and perform, okay, as your friend, someone who admires you, one of the things that I loved about seeing you, think about how many times over the last couple of years we saw each other across the field and we just waved. But the thing that I loved about you and love about you is that you were always by yourself early and you'd go run and get loose and you'd get your prep done and you'd have a phenomenal routine. You know, I was letting you talk about it, but from my vantage point,
I can't give it away too much.
Yeah, I know. I knew what you were doing, but I'll pump your tires for a second. You're very diligent. You're very focused. You're very obedient. And these things have allowed you to handle chaos and continuously get more reps in Major League Baseball. And hopefully that continues to manifest itself into more sustainability, longer career, et cetera, all the things that you want. With that said, it's like I can have a level of admiration for somebody that I've learned to love and respect and trust because I see them engaging with things that make them nervous or fearful and continuously putting themselves in the arena to learn more about themselves, which I think creates your perspective. And I think that is why you just said what you said about when you were younger, your perspective might not have been from you because you're getting molded, you're developing, you're getting formed. Now, I think the goal of the individual is that they eventually become themselves. And the only way to become who you are is to essentially burn off all the things that are not worthy of who you are. And I only think the way that we get to that is being obedient to a process that we feel intuitively that is pulling the most out of us. And while we are going down that path, we have to balance both fear and excitement or like happiness and sadness. And in the great lie is thinking that like you're rid of sadness and fear. Like there's no way. So when somebody is continuously balancing both, trying to stay obedient, learning how to attach, detach, continuously putting themselves in the arena, and then eventually they can sit across from me because I haven't hung out with you like this in a few years now, honestly, which is cool. And I listen to you just be able to comfortably talk about A, your fourth year in the big leagues, but then B, the ability to just shut it down and go sit at the beach. It's like, that seems like a pretty cool perspective.
Yeah.
And
that was phenomenal. I was resonating with you were talking about everything I do with my routine, the stuff that you see, and how fear is involved with that. Because I'm doing all of that because of a fear of being unprepared. So like I guess a lot of
that makes a lot of sense.
It would be like for a lot of humans, how we're operating, or the routines that we're looking for, the things that we're doing is to conquer a fear. So, and I guess, conquering fears changes your perspective of whatever you're fearful of. I mean, that seems like almost tie hand in hand together.
Yeah, you need the fear. You need the fear because the fear is it's actually kind of magnetizing you to who you are. And you need it. And you need to, because when you conquer it, how crazy is it that when you conquer it, there's like another level to it. And it's just another level to it.
Right. Yeah. I guess when you, for example, conquering the fear of playing in front of 40,000 people, and then you conquer that, and then it's okay. Now you're playing in front of 40,000 people in the playoffs, and then it's next level, and then World Series. I think that's kind of how you were talking about how it's just there's always like that one little level to bump up to, but also it's like, when does it stop? Like when?
I don't think it does.
And it shouldn't stop.
No, because then we would stop.
We would stop. It'd be like complacency or just kind of,
And I think that you handle the amount of fear that you can withstand, the amount of friction you can withstand. But I think that fear is here's a thought. Let me know what you think. I think fear has potential to be the voice of our intuition. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
It makes you do what you do. It's kind of the root to a lot of your current decisions and behaviors is fear, positive and negative.
Yeah. I mean, sorry.
You're in there, dude.
I'm like so in there. I don't know if I can voice it.
I can see it in you. I could just see it in there.
This is an incredible feeling, honestly.
That's awesome.
It's like a feeling of euphoria.
Wow, that's so really good. I can see it in there. I'm literally seeing it. I think it's making me just keep having questions because I can see you just processing.
I don't think I've ever heard of all these questions at once. It's incredible,
I told you I didn't know where we were going to go.
Like the fear, the fear aspect is just so incredibly intriguing to me because I've experienced so much fear, but that fear, and in baseball, something that I love so much, and maybe something that I should be very comfortable with. At the same time, I'm very uncomfortable with it. Where it's I could probably hit a ball on a tee with my eyes closed if I wanted to,
right.
But being in that batter's box in front of 40,000 people, and there's a guy, 60 feet, 6 inches away throwing gas at you. Like, I feel like there's always going to be some sort of butterflies or fear in it, but that's also when I come home some days, that's like the most exhilarating feeling ever. Bet. Cause it's like, all right, like I may have had some fear, but I get to do that tomorrow. I get that same feeling. It's just the euphoric feeling of baseball and conquering fears is one of the most incredible feelings ever. And honestly, probably feel like why my love of baseball is just more and more every year because of this journey of conquering fear and conquering adversity,
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
That's really cool. First of all, I think that is what brings you back to the perspective, because each level that you do conquer, the next checkpoint, I think you get to a point where you realize the checkpoints will never end.
No.
But the getting to the checkpoint is the meaning. Mm-hmm. What about that?
Whoa.
Maybe that's the meaning. Again? Getting to the checkpoint is the meaning. Yeah. Meaning your perspective that has changed over the last decade. Mm-hmm. We'll put it in that bucket.
Yeah.
You've learned more about yourself as you've conquered each level, each checkpoint, those things. And I think that at each checkpoint, you get a new dose of euphoria, as you mentioned, that exhilarating feeling. You get like a new dose of it because you didn't know that existed. And I think that largely becomes potential. Mm-hmm. Because then you get so excited. Here goes back to what I find about you as a curious person in general. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's really where we get a lot of our curiosity, because you realize like there's an abundance to you that you didn't even know existed. And when you keep getting more doses of it, you're kind of like, well, what's out there?
Yeah. The unknown.
Yeah. What's more? There's more out there.
Yeah.
There's more of me.
That's wow. Yeah. Like I guess thinking back, like the last decade, I think about my last decade. Mm-hmm. I'm like, holy crap.
Like, look what I just did.
What did I? Yeah. Look what I just did. And then you instantly go to, what else? Like where do I go from here? You know? But then that also ties into like is thinking of the future, the unknown, is that the right way to do it? Like, because then you go back to the power now, like of being in the moment, being here where your feet are, but also keeping that curiosity of what's to come.
I think that it's both. That's why I go back to you drawing in the manifestation, because I don't think you're drawing. This is my challenge, devil's advocate. I don't think you're drawing to beat Zach Wheeler. I think that there's something in there of okay, well, this is the height in which this is the height and level in which I can perceive of myself conquering. I feel like this is achievable. And if I can conquer that, that'll get me to that next exhilaration. And this is what I was talking about earlier in our conversation about moving beyond the illusion of the show. Because if you are consumed in the future, this is where I think it hurts people. You can tell me if I'm wrong here. I think it hurts people when their future is material, meaning when I get to arbitration or I get to free agency, then I'll be happy. When I get the World Series ring, I'll be happy.
I agree 100%.
And you watch people get crushed by that regularly. I've been crushed by that mindset. It's a normal thing. It's really hard to move beyond that. I think this is a different thing when you talk about there's a fear in me. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to become obedient to be able to fight against it. And I'm going to conquer that fear. And when I conquer that fear, I wake up and there's a new me. And I didn't know that me existed, but I knew its potential. And that's why I think we manifest things in the future. I think that's a lot of the futuristic part of consciousness, is that it's our duty to pull all that out of ourselves before we die. And then I think, okay, well then what would be the point of the moment? Because the moment goes back to why I think that you're obsessed with the routine. Because the moment is the preparation for the future you. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And it's like this is crazy thought that just came to me. I think that's why the joy and purpose of when you're doing things in process driven wise or momentarily or routined out day to day, being in the now, I think that feels so unbelievably beautiful in the struggle of it, because that's all that's ever happening. And you are doing this thing right now to get to that checkpoint. Okay, boom, you get enlightened. It's like an enlightenment. I conquered that fear. I've moved beyond that. Now that means my process I need to get even more obedient. That's what's happened to me in the last couple of years, is that I started coaching. When I first started teaching in mental skills, I worked with the first guy I ever worked with. He was actually here the other day, which was crazy. Him and his family were down in Arizona. They hit me up. I invited him over for coffee.
Let's go.
The first kid I ever worked with, he was 8 years old and I was 22, and his dad would pay me $30 cash a session. And I would sit on a bucket with this kid in a closet of a gym, the janitor's closet, so that we could be quiet in this like batting cage, balls, everything. I was 22 years old. When I was 31 years old, I was standing in front of Buster Posey talking.
Wow.
In the San Francisco Giants organization. You know, when I was 27 years old, I started working with NHL hockey players. When I was 30, I was working in the Olympics. I'd worked in the NHL, the NFL. I did all that in my 20s. And what I've learned about me is, I mean, I'm coming up on almost 2 years without drinking. And I was talking to my friend last night over here for dinner, and I told him, I said, because I realized that if I was going to think at the depth in which I was going to consider responsible for the level in which I wanted to teach, I couldn't drink. And that was it. It was that intense. But when I was working on the buckets and making $30 an hour, and there's nothing wrong with that. I did not give it my all. But what I'm saying is I didn't have the amount of stimulus of people wanting advice or asking for certain things. I wasn't traveling around the world speaking. I was going 15 minutes from my house to one spot, and then I was going home. And I was doing that, and it didn't demand a lot of my energy and my attention. I relate that to being in AAA to the big leagues in your scenario. But then as years went on, I started realizing, like, I really don't have the I really don't have the ability to not have my bandwidth today. So there's two ways. I can either default and just live at this baseline, or I can get obedient to health. And that was when I really took sobriety very seriously, because I just thought to myself, like, I have to sleep. Like, if I sleep, then I have the bandwidth, and I can take all that information in on a daily basis.
You can indulge in what you want.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, when I got into the big leagues full time and I was in the mental skills space, I took great responsibility for the fact that I was going to travel with the team, do all the night games, day games, travel time zones. And I asked myself if I felt like I could uphold the responsibility to have somewhat of the same level of capacity to listen for 9 hours a day for 6 to 8 months. And the only way I was capable of doing that was being as healthy as I'd never been. So it was scary.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fear.
Yeah.
But
look at you now with the fear.
Yeah. And I've gotten over that, and I've been sober. Like, now I don't even drink, and I would never have thought of that, but I didn't do that for money. Like, I did that because I was scared of not being good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can totally relate to that, because the routine that I have now, everything that I do day in, day out, really, I would say it hit me 2 years ago, where I'm doing this because I noticed this fear I had in me.
You could feel it.
I could feel it, you know, and I initially really didn't like it.
I bet.
I really didn't like it. It hurt.
Yeah.
You know, and then I just turned that from not liking it to, like, all right, this fear is going to, like, I'm driven to conquer this fear. You know, I want to conquer this. I don't want this feeling anymore.
I love that, you know? Dude. You face it.
And that's the driver for me now, is conquering the fears to become my best self.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, obviously, you know, money's great, you know, whatever, but that's not the number one driver for me.
I think it hurts. I think it hurts the driver. If you fall for the money, it hurts.
Absolutely.
It disrupts the process.
Absolutely. I think so. And I think those people maybe aren't focusing on becoming their true self or their best self.
Sure.
You know, it's, hey, let me get all this money because it's going to make me happy. It's going to make my family happy, you know, but I feel like if I conquer my fears, if that's my driving force, then, you know, the rest of that stuff will come.
Amen.
You know, and I think that's where it's where the driving force has to be, I think.
Yeah. Okay. My last thought, and we'll for real wrap. We've been rapping for a minute.
I love it. It's cool.
It's this, dude. I'm telling you, it's the mic and headphone. The second you put this thing on,
locked in.
You go somewhere. I was telling Chelsea this the other day. Anyways, Do you think to I shouldn't have said that because now I had the question right in my head. I still have it, but I don't think it's going to be as elegantly as it was. When you think about fear and conquering those things now, and you think about what that's done to you and the meaning that drives to you, it's not something, do you have a relationship with it because you could get addicted to the madness of trying to just conquer things out of self-doubt or insecurity, which I think is a natural cause. But I think what I'm hearing you say is it's bigger than that even. It's just more back to meaning. It develops faith in yourself, and it develops faith in what you're pursuing. And do you think that that's where your relationship has maybe changed from how you mentioned earlier in your life? Your perspective maybe wasn't yours, where now it's more this fear drives you, and sure, it's there and it exists and I need to conquer it and fight it and face it and do all these things. But really what it's doing is it's giving me more of the perspective that is ultimately mine. Does it feel like that?
It feels like the perspective I had before was the perspective of the dream, the perspective of the big leaguer, the lifestyle, the fame, the glitter, you know. And now being in it, my perspective's changed to being away from that. You know, I don't think about that at all.
Wow.
You know, it's more of me becoming my true self and becoming my best self. And there was one thing I wanted to say about, you said something, I'm blanking because I was really in depth.
Yeah, that was a remarkable answer.
There was one thing you said.
Here, touch the crystal.
Come on, crystal, give it to me.
Give it to you. Get the crystal energy. It'll come to you. Let the crystal energy work itself through you. Breathe into it. What did you want to ask me?
It wasn't a question. It was more of a comment about what you were saying, because it may have been about talking about the chasing the dream. I think that's a big thing for kids to realize now is that, I mean, Major League Baseball, most incredible job ever.
It's incredible.
You know, it's an incredible experience. It's an incredible life. But the chase, when you're chasing the wrong things, that's when it becomes kind of a kryptonite, I think.
Yeah, and I think for the fortunate ones that go through professional baseball like yourself, for whatever reason, the way it was all designed, I think that's the point for self. Because if you didn't go through it and keep challenging yourself and facing fears, you don't get to say that.
No. And I'm not the person I am right now, and I'm pretty damn happy with where I'm at now and
who you are. Yeah, and I think that's the point, right? Because I can speak on the other side of it as I didn't play in the big leagues. I got released after A-ball in 3 years. And now, fortunately, can I say I was in the big leagues coaching? Sure. But I didn't do it in the childhood dream limelight, you know? I think that you can have that feeling in things like business. Like I felt that in business when I really turned my business around, and it was like all that mattered to me in the beginning with my first company was to make money and be a famous entrepreneur and rich and all these things. And you battle. It's like the minor leagues. You go through your debt days and you got to pay things back. It just sucks. It's miserable. And then you kind of find a place of stability and whatnot. And then you learn, you know, now I'm kind of at my second go around of running business and being an entrepreneur. And this time, all I honestly care about is like hanging out with my wife and like being able to work out every day, being able to sleep on the same schedule. I like talking to people like yourself. I like trying to just be really good at my craft. And it's like all that stuff just leaves you. It's the same thing you're saying. So it's like I might not have learned that lesson as a player, but I think that comes to us in all different avenues. I just think sports is unique because you guys do that in real time in front of people. And I think that's what makes it unique.
Yeah, and a lot of those people don't see, or pretty much all those people don't see us in that perspective, or don't see us as they can't. It's
their reality TV show.
It's their reality TV show. Yeah, they're putting money on us.
Yeah.
they think we're invincible humans and that we don't do anything wrong, you know, but we're definitely not perfect.
No,
far from it. You know?
Oh man, dude, beautiful combo. Cheers. That was electric.
Dude. Cheers.
Thanks for coming on, brother.
Dude, thank you for having me.
This was a lot of fun. It's too late in the day to have another 4-ouncer, but maybe I will. Cheers, folks.